Hello, everybody, and welcome to the June 14th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. Anyway, let's start by talking about just how hot last May was. Specifically, as Kyle Kalinske reported on Secular Talk, it's hotter than, I'm not kidding, the Dust Bowl was in 1934. But, climate change is just a liberal conspiracy by Al Gore to do communism? I don't know. I just want to remind everyone to be very afraid of the upcoming climate change issues that are going to happen if we don't take action. And now I'm going to remind you that Donald Trump believes that it's a conspiracy by the Chinese to kill American manufacturing. Scott Pruitt believes in the both sides thing, as well as Donald Trump's Canadian ambassador. Oh, and by the way, did I mention Pruitt's the head of the EPA? And of course, let's not forget the fact that these effects are already happening. Can't wait for some wars over water. Oh, I guess I gotta talk about this three-state California thing. Apparently there are people who think that California needs to be split up into three separate states. One on the west, one north, one south. I'd like to point out these are the same people who, whenever anyone mentions Puerto Rico, I don't know why I put W there, Puerto Rico, Guam, American Somalia, or really any territory statehood, they go, but uneven stars! But California can apparently, afford to split up into three different states. It's mainly because, well, essentially, it turns out there are actually a lot of conservatives in California. About as many voted for Trump in California as they did in Texas. Now, my solution is simply get rid of the electoral college system. But you gotta love conservatives for coming up with very annoying solutions to very easy annoying questions. Instead, they're gonna split it up in such a way where most of the electoral votes can go to Republicans, so that way a Democrat will never become president again. And they're being transparent with this too. They're admitting that's the end goal here. They want to make the presidential elections more lopsided in Republican favor than they already are. And that's just evil. But here's my question. Would that mean that, say, residents in Texas who vote Democrat, which there are several of, could also form their own state? If so, we need to look into that. We need to get the Democratic people, every single Democrat, in every single right-wing state, to form their own states. That way, we'll at least have the Senate for a good couple hundred years, if my guesses are any indication. Heck, why stop there? Why not every single individual in a right-wing state who's a Democrat become their own state? That would be interesting right there. Of course, I'm joking around with the second proposal. I actually really like the first one. But here's a question. How would congressional districts work? I mean, I assume there are already congressional districts that would go through current California of what would be northern, southern, or normal California when the deal goes through. So are we just going to have congressional districts for two different states? Are we going to draw this arbitrary line? Are we going to combine them? What happens to those representatives? I mean, there are just so many questions here that aren't answered before I can even consider a deal like this. This is a deal for silly people. It's for silly human beings. For that matter, San Francisco wouldn't even be in the just California. It would actually be in Northern California, according to some of this deal. So, therefore, we're still going to have a little bit of that leftist influence in at least one of the new Californias. Don't worry. And we will spread communism with climate change. insane. I mean, mind you, most of the people proposing this are insane people who unironically think Jerry Brown, Nancy Pelosi, and Dianne Feinstein, three of the most boring individuals of all time. I mean, Brown, Pelosi, they're really complete centrists on everything but immigration, and I don't even know if Feinstein is that much. And for the record, I disagree with him on immigration, but everything else, they're just centrist to even right wing in some cases. Feinstein voted for the flag burning amendment and for the Patriot Act and for all the wars. And the TARP program, don't forget the TARP program. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to cover, so I guess I'm going to end this episode a little early. I'm Ephrom. Oh, yeah! I haven't covered Matt Walsh this week! Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. I covered you over on my blog once, and I may actually be covering you again on Monday. Hint, hint. But that's still a maybe. It's up in the air. Who knows? But either way. Yeah, Matt, I'm sorry I haven't covered. Okay, let's cover what Matt's talking about on his podcast today. Episode 50 of your show, by the way. Congratulations, Matt. I'm only at episode 36, so I you've out-episoded me. Matt covered a very important story. Basically, what happened was the CEO of Twitter, Jack, he probably has a last name, but who cares, got into controversy after he posted a picture of eating Chick-fil-A during June, which is Pride Month for the LGBT community. Honestly, I didn't care about this story. I do consider it kind of odd he decided to take a picture of it, honestly, though. At least some of the stories are saying he took a picture of it, and that's really the only way you could have proven it. Like, dude, do you just take pictures of every single meal you eat? Like, I ate at McDonald's. Just figured people should know. He really is the founder of Twitter. Someone over at the Huffington Post wrote an article condemning this, specifically because the CEO of the restaurant has expressed anti-gay marriage views before. And this especially angered Matt Walsh, who is both against gay marriage and a proud eater at Chick-fil-A, as seen during this podcast where he actively eats it throughout the thing just to trigger the libs. I could make fun of him for that, but I once ate a burger while covering one of his articles, specifically to show how stupid he was. So, we're kind of in the same boat there, Matt. I was surprised this controversy was still going on, because I've actually even known, because personally, I want to say this, I've never eaten at a Chick-fil-A. It has nothing to do with their political stance they took half a decade ago. It has to do with there are better restaurants. Notably, basically every restaurant. Well, I don't know, I've never actually been there. Maybe they're perfection, but who knows. I would like to point out, though, that even a good amount of gay people I know don't care about that controversy anymore. So, again, it feels like we're jumping on a bandwagon a few years too late, I mean, Mike Pence is the vice president, and that's kind of more of a threat in my mind. That Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Neil Gorsuch being on the Supreme Court, and a lot of other things than a fast food restaurant. But, okay. I understand I'm being kind of cynical. But I'd also like to point out, by the way, that Filet no longer donates to many of the groups they donated to about half a decade ago when this controversy started. However, Matt Walsh still praises them as great fighters against the homosexual agenda, trademark. Ignoring the fact that, as I just pointed out, they stopped donating to most of those groups about several years ago now. But Matt doesn't care because they are still brave fighters for biblical marriage, even though I thought they supported monogamy. I couldn't resist that one, sorry. But the thing is, I cannot stress this enough. They lost 3 years ago now. We're coming up on 3 years since I always pronounce the guy's name wrong. Obergefell versus Hodge's ruling that made same-sex marriage legal nationwide. So, Matt, you lost. And I know you lost because you wrote articles about it. And those are actually some of the articles that I found you in which he... Seriously, go read some of Walsh's old articles on gay marriage. They are hilarious. That's it. I'm Ephrom, and good night.